And with me in studio, we have Dennis Mbanda, political analyst, Kidi Mwaga, governance and policy expert, Akivaga Jayuga, lawyer and political analyst, and Joseph Chege, he's an analyst, politics and youth affairs. Gentlemen, Kidi Mwaga, Karibu. The only bit I think you've missed essentially is the one on governors. And they're saying they shouldn't be vilified or persecuted for failing to attend the public barazas that Azimio has been holding. Yes. So that's the only thing I think the gentleman commented on that you wouldn't have occasion to. Yes. But given the COB report that's illustrated on the front page of the Star informs our conversation, yes. I will give you occasion to comment on that because you haven't. State House spent, it reveals, 4.8 million shillings daily, yes. on hospitality. Now, there were some numbers that Akivaga had taken issue with before we went on break, and that is the allocations to the office of the president, and Dennis Mbanda stood by his numbers. He told us, ISO numbers, they're very accurate. It is indeed, it was indeed reported by the Business Daily. And this is what it says. The latest data published by Treasury Cabinet Secretary Njuguna Ndongo indicate that the Executive Office of the President spent 9.09 billion in the period through January against an original full-year estimate of 8.64 billion shillings. That represents an over-expenditure of 450 shillings, 50 million shillings, or a 5.21% of the original 12-month budget for the presidency prepared by the previous administration. The additional expenditure has already been tabled in the House via a supplementary budget under the law that requires MPs to approve spending that lacked a parliamentary nod within 2 months. Under the mini budget, Professor Ndongo has proposed to increase the budget for the Executive Office of the President by 5 billion to 13 billion compared with the original estimates, a growth of 59.89%. State House budget has more than doubled to 8.85 billion shillings from 4.37 billion shillings approved under former President Uhuru Kenyatta, while Mr. Gachagwa's office expenditure has increased by 914.25 million to 2.63 billion. So Dennis Mbanda has been vindicated. But Akivaga tells us that this is a new administration. Yes. They're setting up office, etc. Maybe that can explain why they shot through the budget for the 2022-2023 financial year. But looking forward, the budget for the office of the president has more than doubled. These are the estimates, these are the projections, to 8.85 billion shillings from 4.37 billion shillings, while Gachagwa's office expenditure has been increased by 914 million to 2.63 billion. In your view, what could explain this? Or is this whole conversation as illustrated, like, you know, the latest data we have today is what you'll find on your front page of the Star? And the State House spent 4.8 million shillings. They tell us, according to the Control of Budget report. Are we making, as I asked earlier, much ado about nothing? Is it worth the ink it's printed using?
Yeah, well, thank you, Olive One, for having me on the show. It's good to see my brothers here, and it's good being on the show with you. Diving right into the heart of the subject matter, it must be appreciated that the President rode to State House on the pledge to cut on wastage. When you spend 4.8 million daily on hospitality, as I see it on my paper, that does not augur well, because when you spend that on hospitality, it possibly indicates, and then you realize that now within 7 months you have exhausted what is the allocation. That does not sit pretty as a government that is keen on austerity, because when you engage in austerity, there are sections of the economy that ideally in moments of economic tailspin, where government needs to be deliberate about overspending in, so that there is sufficient money in circulation. But when you say there is austerity, but that austerity does not reflect in the personal lifestyle of the commander-in-chief, it does not sit pretty with very many Kenyans, yours truly included. Thank you.
Oh, well, Akivaga, would you like to revise your position, or now that we've verified the numbers that Dennis Mbanda presented?
With regard to, I didn't contest the numbers released by the Control of Budget.
It was the 2 billion shillings.
Yes, all the 2 billion shillings.
Which we've confirmed.
Oh, it's sorry.
Okay.
I
nothing to add to that?
There's nothing to add on that.
Okay.
I'd seen on Standard, I think 2 days ago, maybe they had not come abreast with the real figures.
Or maybe they were revised, because these are, what do they call them? What do they call them? Estimates? Estimates. Right?
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah. True. Okay, so staying on track with our topic this morning, part of what triggered this conversation is this statement that was released by Azimio. Azimio does not support creation of the CAS positions. And this is some of what they say. The new layer of bureaucracy will come with another set of officers, staff, per diems, salaries and equipment, including fuel guzzlers that will consume another set of billions of money from overtaxed and suffering Kenyans with no tangible returns. As a party, we remain opposed to efforts to expand the executive further and create excessive bureaucracy that will add no value to the lives of our people. Indeed, we are concerned that the government has grown too large, too bureaucratic, too wasteful, too unresponsive and too uncaring about people and their problems. At this moment in our history as a country, we feel every available shilling should be directed at lowering the cost of basic goods like unga, electricity and fuel, financing the basic education of our children, providing... Oh, I moved too fast there. Providing water and hay to drought-stricken communities, saving our collapsing public universities, and addressing the problem of insecurity. The statement has been signed by the leader of the minority, that is Opiyo Wandayi, in the National Assembly. Well, Akivaga, I'm curious, are you wondering, like me, why the opposition, if indeed it was in the last between 2017 and 2022, as some have challenged, why didn't they make this sort of clamor then? Because this position was actually created by President Uhuru Kenyatta, former President Uhuru Kenyatta, President Uhuru Kenyatta then, who is now, he's still the chair of the Azimio Council, is it not? Correct. This is his baby. So, do you view it as hypocritical, or is it a case of two wrongs do not make a right?
First, I think Opiyo is wrong to say that the position of the CAS expands the executive, because the position of the CAS is not in the executive. The Constitution under Article 130 is clear on what constitutes the national executive, and it categorically states the national executive constitutes the president, the deputy president, and the cabinet. Under Article 150, it goes further to state who constitute the cabinet. And the cabinet is made up by the president himself, the deputy president, the attorney general, and not less than 14 and not more than 22 cabinet secretaries. So that is not an expansion of the executive. That's the first point. The second point is this. When President Uhuru Kenyatta was creating that office, of course, he first of all sought a recommendation from the Public Service Commission. And the law allows him to do that. When you read Article 132(4) of the Constitution, he can, in association or in consultation with the Public Service Commission, he can establish an office after he has assessed that the workload which is existent in the current needs reinforcement, other people to come. And so it is pursuant to that, that on 23rd January of 2018, he wrote a letter, a circular to the PSC and requested them the possibility of creating this office. And the PSC obliged. What are the responsibilities of this? Number one, simply when you look at the responsibility of the CAS, it's simply being a liaison officer assisting the cabinet secretary in the execution of their mandate. Now, I was saying, first of all, the CAS is responsible for being a liaison between the cabinet secretary and the Senate and the National Assembly. Liaison officer between the CAS and the ministerial department and county governments. I mean, we understand that.
But who do they answer to?
Of course, they answer to the cabinet secretary, and strictly they answer to the cabinet secretary.
And the cabinet secretary answers to?
Yes. The cabinet secretary, of course, answers to the president. So
how does it not fall under the executive?
It doesn't fall under the executive because the constitution is very clear on what constitutes the executive. The position of the CAS is a position under the public service. So I wanted, first of all, to make that clear. Now, secondly, on the issue of the hypocrisy of the Azimio. Yes, it is true they are hypocritical because when this office was benefiting their people, when people like Obure were in this office, Raila never batted an eyelid. It is only now that he's out of government that he's now raising objections to the creation of this office. And this speaks further, a faithful expression of his continuous doublespeak on issues of governance. And it shows he doesn't really have a stand. He only favors something when, he only advocates for something when it favors him, which is not good. So this is simply doublespeak. The position of the CAS is legitimately established there. The workload for the CAS, I mean, I'm not the president. If Uhuru saw the workload for this CAS is quite big and they need the assistance, he was right and the PSC commended them. And we went to public participation recently and Kenyans agreed, yes, this office is needed. And it's only through that it was created.
Where was this public participation?
It was advertised in different sections of this country. You could see that it was advertised in the public newspapers. Some of it will happen here in Nairobi, KICC, different places. You could go and give your opinion. And Kenyans give their opinion about the formation of this office. And that is why the office is in existence right now.
All right. But it could be argued that the nature of public participation in this country is not properly defined. But let me get Joseph's views on the same. Is Azimio being disingenuous?
No. You see, we just keeping in check the government. You see, I was one of the people who were campaigning for Azimio in Mount Kenya region. And when we went there, the president, William Samoei Ruto and his group, would go to our people daily in the markets, telling them that Sisi hatutengenezi vyeo. We are not creating positions for anybody. And
actually, it's interesting that you mentioned that. If you'll allow me to just pull up the bit on BBI, because they say these people opposed BBI on these very same grounds. In fact, this is the paragraph. Indeed, we are dismayed that William Ruto, who campaigned against the BBI on grounds that it was meant to create positions, is now busy creating positions that will add no value whatsoever to service delivery.
The reason we found it very hard to campaign for Azimio in Mount Kenya, because Ruto would go to the markets and tell our people that wanatengeneza viti za prime minister. They are creating seats for prime minister. And at the time they are telling them that, people like in Kiambu, a place that have been a food basket for this nation, were lining up for relief food. And they could rate the problem and the hardship they were facing as people from these positions that were being created by Uhuru, even the CAS. So, Ruto will go to the markets and tell them the government that will form, it will be the government of Mamboga. It will not be the government for creating seats for Wadosi. In fact, he was using that name. Hatutatengenezea Wadosi viti tena. Tuanze na Mamboga, tuanze na mtu wa chini. And I want to tell Kenyans that any seat that could have been created by any extravagant president has already been created by President William Samoei Ruto. Our people in Mount Kenya were fearing that there will be a creation of a prime minister post. It's already there. And to add to that, there is even an office of the spouse of the prime minister, funded by the public who are dying. And I'm telling these people to the people of Mount Kenya. The people of Mount Kenya were against Uhuru because of creation of those CASs. Because those CASs, they were told that it's being created to give to the politicians who are just loyal, and they do nothing. And our people are so mad. And that's what Ruto capitalized on. And what he capitalized on is exactly what he is doing. And that's why I'm telling you, the Ruto we saw while campaigning was the meek person empathizing that I'm with you when you go hungry to bed, I will be going with you, we'll be crying together. But the Ruto who is there now is more of a president. He's more of a ruler. The people in Kenya are not even subjects anymore. They are slaves, people who cannot even have a meal a day. While we have other 30 positions being created by William Samoei Ruto just to give his politicians, people, this position that does not benefit anybody. We are not saying that it's wrong. We are just telling William Samoei Ruto, at least be honest to the people who voted for you. Because people who voted for you, this is not what you campaigned for. You campaigned on a different platform of making sure that you are cutting the budget. But what are we saying? I think but it's shame.
But only we need to get something right.
Akivaga.
President Ruto is not creating the office of the CAS. The office of the CAS has been in existence since 2018. And it has been, all these years, the office has been allocated budget. So it is not a new creation. And he is trying to fault Ruto for creating the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Ruto created the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary after the election, at least. They created the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary before the elections even. They created that position even before the election. So why the double speak?
We are saying we are checking on Ruto on what he promised the Mamambogas. Ruto did not promise all these positions. And the reason he was riding and fighting Azimio is because of those positions. Because ours was good. We came up with a BBI. We told them our Prime Minister position, and Ruto went around Mount Kenya region. I'm speaking to the people of Mount Kenya because that's where I was campaigning, who are telling me that President William Samoei Ruto will abolish anything to do with positions. He will make sure that money trickles down to Mamamboga, or it will go up or whatever. But what we are seeing now, there is no money trickling down. In fact, what is trickling down to Mamamboga, he might trickle to the grave.
Okay. Okay. That's you're Peter. But Dennis, it's true what Akivaga, on that one I will agree with Akivaga, on the creation, because that is what this statement says, that Ruto, where is it? Where is, yes, that it was meant to create. No. Where is this create? But anyway, when you read through this statement, you'll see, yes, even the, perfect, how it is titled, Azimio does not support creation of CAS positions. It's true, this is slightly misleading because it was created, this position was created by former President Uhuru Kenyatta. Is it fair then, as Akivaga says, to lay it on the doorstep of his successor, President William Ruto? He says there was already a budget for it.
Olive, I'm actually disturbed, highly disturbed. When I heard my brother spoke, I got riled up a bit.
I saw your facial expression. You know that you were reading my facial expression when you said reckless. I read your facial expression.
Yeah, primarily because I do not want to reduce this to political level, where Azimio say this and the UDA government is saying this. Remember last time when we had this discussion, my stand was these seats are unconstitutional. There is no constitutional mandate. It is not anchored in the Constitution. Because if you were to tell me what are the constitutional duties or roles of the CAS, you will not find it. And you remember the position of assistant ministers was done with. And there are reasons why it was done away with. The reason why I'm actually trembling just having this discussion is because we are living in a country where the inflation rate has gone to 9.2%. And that is something that is supposed to scare all of us. We're living in a country where if you go to the northern region of this country, we have people that are grappling with terrorism, the cross-border terrorism. We have people that are grappling with drought, and also at the same time, they're being affected by the incessant raids, the banditry in that area. These are people that are genuinely suffering. And if you come down to the south of Kenya, where we live, where we are in Nairobi now, just walk around the streets. People cannot afford basic food. Even putting food on the table is a problem. Buying sukuma wiki now, 50 shillings, you cannot even buy nyanya na sukuma wiki ukule. You cannot. People are stressed in this country. And because of the dynamic, maybe by then, the economic times were not as hard as it is now. And if we were to talk about the double standards, the same Mr. Ruto told us that he was against creating oppositions. And he was adamantly and always spirited talking about this. So let us not talk about double positions. This thing is illegal and should not be allowed. And now that the courts made a ruling on this, for me, you can imagine the government going to spend close to 200 billion annually on salaries, on allowances, on these people, car grants and what have you. And the common person that is being taxed cannot put food on their table. So the question is, do we really need this now? We don't. Number two, look at the people who are going to be vetted and rewarded. These are people who, most of them, we have, out of that list, we have about 9 governors that have served their terms. And they're looking for these positions. What new thing do they want to do? We are living in a country where Kenyans do not even have meaningful jobs. And people that will be rewarded, if anything, will not even be young people. You will see old people that and Ruto's cronies that are going to be rewarded. So to me, this is overburdening the Public Service Commission. This is overburdening the taxpayer. And it's also duplication of duty, because their roles are not clearly stipulated in the Katiba, and therefore I do not support this entirely, especially because of the high economic times that we live in. This is just meant to reward cronies that were left out during the formation of the government. They have nothing meaningful to do. There will be zero service delivered to the people. So I do not support this completely, and the people are the supreme in the constitution. The people should come out and say, we do not want this. Yes. Okay.
Kidi, your thoughts on the subject?
Yes, Oliver, I will say this, that there is the brilliant William Ruto, the politician, that I am certain a lot of Kenyans are now missing as president. Why am I saying this? Is that President Ruto was sworn into office at a time when the country is reeling from a lot of vagaries. One, of underperforming economy. Secondly, of disrupted global supply chain. 3, of ballooning unemployment rate. And therefore, they say that the difficult moments require difficult measures. We expected legitimately to see President William Ruto, who is going to run a lean and efficient government. That lean and efficient government, I believe that there is a reason why the Constitution, or through the people of Kenya in their infinite wisdom, decided to do away with the position of the assistant minister. The position of assistant minister was done away with because people of Kenya believed that once somebody is nominated as cabinet secretary, that they would take charge of the ministry, use the ministry staff to run government affairs, and deliver to the people of Kenya, so that there is no duplication of roles. Secondly, it must also be understood that over and above having the cabinet secretary in office, there is also the principal secretary, who that if and when for whatever reason the cabinet secretary is not available, the principal secretary, as the person holding the authority to incur expenditure in the ministry, would be able to sufficiently take charge. So I am faulting the creation of the position of the CAS because of the opportunity cost. Opportunity cost in the sense that the 126 billion that we would be spending in a year to maintain the CASs is something that we can put to a proper use. Of course, there has been argument that we can use the position of the CAS as a training ground for young people in government. A position that, of course, I identify with. However, back to where I started, that we are in a precarious position economically and politically. If you permit me a chance to speak on the precariousness of our political situation, is this: that the president was sworn into office with a majority of 234,000, right? Yeah. So that it means that his closest challenger was short of only 234. So it is the vote that was making the difference was so slim. So that it means that when a huge swath of the population is suffering, and especially with the calls of legitimacy or lack of it towards the government, it means that you have a fairly restive populace that is susceptible to political stimuli. And that political stimuli can be used to very destructive ends. So that the president has to treat very carefully. And for instance, right now, we are told that there are 400 doctors who are still unemployed.
4,000.
Oh, 4,000, thank you. But then you also look at the standard, the infrastructure, the healthcare infrastructure in this country. It is not one of the best. Still, so many people are dying of curable diseases. It is something that we can stop, and we are pleading with the president that we want to see President William Ruto we saw on the campaign trail, that everyone else was talking about as a brilliant politician. As president, we want him to govern in a small measure, using poetry, as much as we know that politicians govern through prose. Thank you.
All right, Akivaga, your response?
I want to respond to something. I'm disturbed by the continued sentiments by my friend that the position of the CAS is unconstitutional. I'm wondering, how are they declaring something constitutional, which even the courts themselves have declared it is constitutional? They
had declared it unconstitutional, but then it was in the
setting. Based on the public participation angle of it, not based on its substantiveness and the procedure and its place in the Constitution. Because it is clear, it is not a position in the Constitution, it's a position in the Public Service Commission. And let me say the following. There is an office, the real position that has been created currently. When you look at Parliament, and Opio and I won't talk about this because he benefits from it. When you look at Parliament, in this year, we have increased the committees by 10. As a matter of fact, the Public Investment Committee has been subdivided into 3. Now, these 10 committees, according to the macro fiscal analytics snapshot, a report by the Institute of Public Finance, they categorically state that there is no clear demarcation of roles of these committees that have been subdivided. And what these committees are doing, they are simply taking taxpayers' money. Now, this is the area where Opio and I is supposed to talk about, because he presides over the cohort in the National Assembly, but he won't talk about it. Why? Because it benefits him. So he only has an issue with the office that was created back then, and he's taking, exception of that office. Yet we have the real issue in Parliament itself.
I think,
Joseph, yes?
I think we're on the same page with my brother. He's also complaining that there is a expenditure recklessly that is happening in Parliament.
I'm complaining about the double speak.
And Undai should talk about it. Exactly, that's what we're saying. That you're saying that there is extravagantly in Parliament being spent, and Undai should speak about it. And you're also speaking about the extravagantness in this government. So I think we have agreed as a panel that that's what he's saying. We have agreed as a panel that from whichever angle you sit, you should call out this government when it is spending public money extravagantly on the vulgarity of people who are dying of hunger. I think we have agreed with him. It's only that his point is on who is saying it.
All right. So, Dennis, you have something to add to that?
Maybe, are you closing on this?
Yes, but have your last word on it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, let us just stop with this flowery and peacockry words. We are just using good words. At the end of the day, the common man is suffering.
Sure.
And what we are saying is that the writing is on the wall. You remember during the Belshazzar feast, mene, mene, tekel. that we are telling Mr. President Ruto that you have been weighed, you've been measured, and the people of Kenya have found you wanting. So what we are saying is that this needs to stop. Yes.
All right. So, Chidi.
I must speak to the constitutionality.
And I'm actually opening the judgment.
Yes.
And stories related to the court ruling. When was this? February 16th, 2023. The Daily Nation says the court has thrown out a case filed by the Law Society of Kenya challenging establishment of the CAS position in the public service, I think, is the point that Akivaga was trying to make. Yes. But let me also go back to the judgment. But go ahead, Kidi.
Thank you very much, Olive. I said I wanted to speak to the constitutionality of the position of the CAS. There is a narrative that is being peddled that that position is illegal. It must be understood that the Constitution gives the President powers to, in consultation with the Public Service Commission, to create any other position so as to, make the administration of public affairs better. This has been done so that the only bit that we are opposed to, and let me say the only bit that I am opposed to is that looking at the where we are as a country economically, I think that it is not a priority because the president has sufficiently attempted to reward his people. You have seen, we used to have a gentleman in this panel called Maina Karobia,
yes,
who is currently an MP in Eyala.
Yes.
I mean, he has done it so well. So I don't think he should go out of his way to blot the public service, because part of the challenge we are grappling with today is a huge wage bill in the moment when we are unable to collect enough tax and when we are also confronted with the challenge of debt distress. So I think that the president, we need to remind the president that we are not very keen on the position of the CAS because we think that that money can be redirected to a much more prudent use. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so let's take a look at what the 2021 judgment, I believe, stated. It did state that they claim that the processes towards the establishment of the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary were in contravention of Articles 10, 47, 132.4a, 201a, 232.1, 234, 2c of the Constitution, as well as Sections 27 and 30 of the Public Service Commission Act, succeeded. The court declares the office of the Chief Administrative Secretary unconstitutional. So this has to do with the processes towards the establishment of the office, which Akivaga tells us were rectified thereafter. And this is the latest from the courts. I've pulled up a NTV Kenya article as well as Nation.Africa article. This was February the 16th, 2023. The court that just last month, a court has thrown out a case filed by the Law Society of Kenya challenging the establishment of the chief CAS positions in the public service. Justice Monica Mbaru of the Employment and Labor Relations Court ruled that the public service on Thursday that the Public Service Commission to create the position is lawful, dismissing LSK's petition to declare the position illegal. The judge noted that the commission followed the requisite legal procedure in its bid to establish the office, taking steps such as inviting public views, which I believe is the point that Akivaga was trying to make. The same captured on NTV Kenya .co.ke. This one is by Mwana Wanjuguna, who says the court clears appointment of CASs. Okay, so speaking of LSK, Law Society of Kenya, Public Service Commission and creation of offices, the Law Society of Kenya, aside from on the position of CAS, has moved to court. Has not moved to court, has written to the Public Service Commission seeking clarity on this office of the first spouse of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. Correct?
Yes.
All right, this is the Business Daily article. Let me see who the author of it is. It's not indicated, but the details are this. The Law Society of Kenya has written to the Public Service Commission seeking information on the establishment of the Office of Spouse of the Prime Cabinet Secretary. The office, CS's wife Tessie Mudavadi, was launched last week to allegedly complement the work being done by the Office of the First Lady, Rachel Ruto, and the Office of the Spouse to Deputy President Dorcas Gachagua. Article 234 of the Constitution. The PAC may establish an office in the public service, and the LSK wants to be furnished with information regarding the legal framework that guides its establishment, the financial implications of setting up the office, and the benefits that shall accrue to members of the public as a result of the establishment of the office. Quote here, kindly supply us with information stated above within the next 7 days to enable us interrogate the same and satisfy ourselves as to the legality of the establishment of the office. Theory said the LSK will move to court and challenge the establishment of the office if the information sought is not made available within 1 week. Ms. Mudavadi said during the launch that she will work with other organizations to empower Kenyans and individuals, especially in improving the lives of children and families. Now, I saw this initially as part of a news alert, right? That this office is going to be created. And a lot of the sentiments I saw there were like, people were somewhat disbelieving, like, they were like, you've got to be joking. I'm curious, when you read this, or when it was finally verified that this was actually created, I wonder what your thoughts, your views were, Joseph.
You see, most of the news flying around, if you happen to be the first person to see the news, you will find it being propaganda. Because in your right mind, you can't believe that is happening when our economy is performing this way. You see, as my friend has said, the William Samoei Ruto, the campaigning one, and the William Samoei Ruto on the seat are two different people. The person on the seat is a ruler who don't care what the public is going through. If they're dying, the taxes are being increased, children have not gone to school, and so on. Sometimes back, we were taken to a seekers by one of the first daughters who said that, who told, it was in a hall, who said that those who work in the office of the first daughter.
You were there, you were present?
No, I was not there.
Oh,
I just saw a clip
to
stand up and wave. And people are like, in the social media, how can we be such reckless? Now we have even created an office of the first daughter, but somehow it vanished. But it goes back to what we are talking about, that in 7 months, the budget of the State House has been blown out. A whole year budget has been blown out, and it has been increased to 62%, 5 billion. It can be able to tell you how many more offices and extravagance that are going on in State House, or that are being used to fund those extravagant offices by the taxes from the people who already cannot raise those taxes. I want to say, when this came out, that there was a position of the spouse of the first, is it first prime minister or first of a prime minister? Because it's even confusing. You're wondering what's going on in this country. An office of the spouse of the prime minister. And people are asking, as a country, is these our priorities? Have we reached this level? Are these cabinet people? Can't the office of the prime minister be set somewhere in Turkana, so that anytime he sets his foot out, he can see people dying in front of him of hunger? Can the office of the president be set somewhere in Isiolo, where the bandits are crossing each other with cattle, killing people helplessly? Can the office of the education, the CS, talk about the children who have not even, their dreams have been killed because of poverty? They cannot even afford the school fees. Over 160 students, 2 months down the line, people have reported to school. A parent is seeing the dream of their children have died just like that, and nothing can be done. And here we are in a hall full of people clapping for a prime minister for ingeniously creating a position of a spouse that will be funded not from the budget that was given, but a new budget has to be set to fund that office.
Those are your claims.
I want to say that something that you have said.
Akivaga disagrees, but we'll come back with that. We need to take a break, but we'll come back to continue. Will you be able to hold your thoughts?
Yes.
Okay.
I will.
All right. So we take a break. We'll be back with more.
The weekend is finally upon us, and we're definitely bringing the heat on Teen Republic this Saturday. That's why Palace Studioni tunakuletea msanii all the way from Nigeria, Bayani. He is the hit maker. We'll also be having Shana Riha Evans in studio.
Sugar cane sweet, but your love is sweeter.
A Freak 254 dance crew watakuwa wana kick it with your favorite hosts Aziza Hashim, Joseph Friends. On the digital we have Aida Mumeta. Na usisahau mziki bomba with DJ Ritmo.
I got the reason why I can't let go. You never know, so you're bungus.
Teen Republic in association with Fanta.
What's over? Busy biters, get down to snack business. When snacking is under attack, we'll be there to fight back.
Sometimes love is sweet to her.
I know that we've only just met, and
when true love comes your way, it just takes a few minutes to recognize it.
And other times, it is so bitter that she can't recognize it.
No!
Get away from her! Let her go!
You killed him!
Guilt.
No, I didn't kill him, I swear!
Get the van! We have to bring him to the hospital! Move faster!
Whoever did this to your brother, evil, I will make him pay for this.
I am a Garcia too, even though I don't have the same blood. You can believe what you want.
I don't want to be with you anymore.
Don't you realize that you are way too young for me?
Yes, but you feel the same way I do.
And where are they?
Natalia, be careful! Why do you always go with the first one that sweet talks you?
I hate you, you good for nothing! Don't touch me!
Head over heels.
Head Over Heels in association with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa.
The triple layered care of Deep Moisture Serum, precious cocoa butter and vitamin E enriches your skin for 48 hours. It's time to show off your best skin. Wear your skin with pride every time with Nivea Nourishing Cocoa Body Lotion.
The European countries dump 37 million items za mtumba in Kenya every year. 37 million mitumba clothes. And they have become a problem because had the band have changed their wardrobe. Before COVID, nguo za mitumba zikiingia 37 million, had the band walikuwa wanavaa 35 million. Sasa hivi wameomoka wakaacha kuzivaa. Hizo nguo zote hazizivaliwa na wase wa spoken word na BN. Now
unite us. I will never forget.
Literally ulikuwa unauza kuku.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful story because this just shows mtu yote anatoka Eldina anauza kuku. Mmoja sasa ni president. There's something special.
Wewe defend.
With Glovo, you have the city in your hands. Unatamani chakula different? Order Glovo ujaribu restaurant mpya. Diapers zimeisha? Order Glovo and save the day. Download the app and order anything you want.
All right, welcome back to AM Live with my panelists this morning. This is what we are interrogating. Here we go. Office of the Spouse, Faith Diplomacy, CAS's Starving Kenyans Bloated Executive. We've covered the CAS's part. We are now on Office of the Spouse. Joseph, you are concluding your thought process on this before I give Akivaga a chance to respond.
What I was saying is that the vagaries that we're having right now as a country, my friend talked about that people don't have meaningless jobs. Even those meaningful jobs. Yes. Even those unmeaningful, people don't have. Some young people, they don't have anything to do at all. And here, people are talking about tuanzie mtu wa chini. The talk and the action is very different. The talk is, we will help you, those who are downtrodden. But the action is that you don't matter at all. What matters is us, the office of the, what is this office of the spouse of the Prime Minister that the office of the First Lady cannot address, the office of the Second Lady cannot address? What is this that need to be addressed by a position to be created as spouse? I don't know, even office of the spouse. And I'm telling you, it's politically. Because the other day, the spouse you're talking about, the Prime Minister, was in Murang'a, meeting some women, talking with some women, other things. I'm not saying it's bad, but as a politician, I can tell you, it's not created to serve Kenyan. It is created because they foresee a scenario whereby you have to start accumulating and galvanizing some support for some decisions that will be made in the near future.
Akivaga, your response quickly so that Kidi also has a chance.
Give a quick response to that. You see, as a lawyer, I'm more inclined to look at the reason for the judgment rather than the judgment itself. In the context of the creation of the post, I look at the reason for the creation of the post rather than delving on the semantics of creating the post in itself. Why was this post created? This post was created to deal with the vulnerable, to address the issues of people living with disabilities.
But what Joseph is asking is, why can't that be served by the existing office of the First Lady and the Deputy President?
We are normal human beings. The God has given us grace to be normal, to have all the systems working. But the person living with disability will disagree with such sentiments because he feels that his representation and his voice is being added more in the governance structure. The report by the State Department for Social Protection, Senior Citizen Affairs, and Special Programs in 2021, it stated that this country has still done little to address the plight of people living with disability, and hence there is need for a multi-sectoral effort in each government agency to make sure that we bring these people on board. And the creation of this office is part and parcel of the process to ensure that they are brought on board.
Okay.
So we can disagree with it, but the vulnerable people are happy. They are celebrating that the government is finally bringing them on board by creating this office that specifically targets their affairs.
Kidi?
It is not a coincidence that my brother Akivaga Jayuga is wearing a yellow tie. And you can clearly see he is sufficiently holding brief for the government. So some of us who are not in government are therefore free to speak without seeking to appear politically correct. And this is what I will say. That the creation of the position of the CAS, my brother says rightly that is supposed to cure problems of representation in cabinet, which is very good. Among the 5 needs of young persons, representation is one of them. And it is representation in the executive, now that is cabinet, representation in the National Assembly or legislature, and representation in the boards of non-profits and parastatals. However, Akivaga Jayuga seems to be forgetting that in what circumstances are we operating in? In a country that for every 100 shillings collected in taxes, 60 shillings goes to paying debt, you may not want to start policing the special interest groups in the here and now, especially in creating special seats to appease that segment of society. If we could not find how to accommodate such people within, say, the cabinet as it is, if we cannot accommodate such segments of the society in National Assembly and the Senate, then I think the next best thing to do is that we have the president jumpstart the economy. I know my former siblings in the Azimio coalition are saying that the president is that people do not have jobs. I must say that jobs are not created overnight. Jobs are created when the economy is performing. How do you get the economy to perform? That you ensure that there is sufficient productivity, that you ensure that there is, there is sufficient trade, that you ensure that you revitalize the private sector, that you have private sector that is functional, and then naturally that creates jobs. When that creates jobs, then it ensures that people live with dignity. Because a government is in office so that you move away from the survival for the fittest as a guiding principle to where you now begin to extending help to the most vulnerable in society. So that when we are here and we are looking at 126 billion in a year being spent to appear that we have given a voice, say to certain special interest groups, youths, women, people with disability, I think that would be a misnomer. Why would it be a misnomer? Because of the youths and women and people with disability that we would be, mainstreaming through using this 126 billion. If this 126 billion is spent in the economy, then so many young people, so many people living with disability, so many women who may ordinarily not have a chance to sit in cabinet would get to feel the benefit of that 126 billion. And that is where I respectfully disagree with my brother who is holding brief for the government. Thank you.
Akivaga, you are called using both your names. Akivaga Jayuga. when your parents were disappointed in you, because with your full name, Olive Barrows. Yes, Dennis Mbanda.
What I want to add is that what this government is doing is that they shoot and then they aim later. Primarily, if you look at creating the position for the prime, is it first? I don't even know what the name should be. Because Kenyans still do not even understand what Mudavadi does. What does he even do? People don't even understand his position clearly. Yes, he's the prime cabinet secretary, but what does he really do? What I'm saying is that we do not want to see these people. Let them act and act and act. So, in the next few days, you will also hear that the office of the First Lady is now, as director, the HR director, State House, to employ about 100 prayer intercessors.
You're transitioning us now to that part of the conversation.
Let me just come. Yeah, around 100 intercessors. And this is still going to overburden the Public Service Commission to find out who they will employ, the criteria with which that will be done, and who will pay these people. In a country where you can imagine that this country is the economic hub of this region, and is one of the largest economies in Africa. And as such, you'd expect the First Lady to pick up serious issues. If you live in a country where people are grasping even to have basic food on the table, and previous First Ladies have done amazing work, the Beyond Zero campaign, Linda Mama program, and now we have a First Lady who is taking us towards praying. So what we are saying, praying is okay, but we need service delivery. So we need to also understand what this what Tessie will be able to do, and I think that is a discussion that is ongoing. For me, what I'll say, that I think Kenyans should come together and pray for this government, because I feel that this government is sick. They need help.
All right, and you reminded me of the opinion piece by Butuma Matthew today, and he says To their credit, Kenya Kwanza have had a coherent message, that of taking development to the base and empowering poor folk through small digital loans and so on. President William Ruto is reputably eloquent and hardworking. He does not hit the bottle like the average Kenyan politician, and this is good. But he says there are several things which might be contributing to the perception that the government is running very fast, but without a clue of where it is going. I'll leave you to read the rest of that opinion piece. And I want to move us now to this part of our conversation. This faith diplomacy, which you've made reference to, Dennis. I cannot speak to the veracity of the intercessor claim. This is a tweet that was posted by Pauline Njoroge. She says, when you read this post, you will think I am going crazy or this is high propaganda, but true to God, it is the truth, nothing but the truth. As if forcing the entire staff at State House to fast every Wednesday is not weird enough, First Lady Rachel Ruto has established a, quote, faith diplomacy office and handed the HR at State House a list of 100 people to be recruited into the PSC as intercessors. Their role will be to pray for counties and the government. The HR department is struggling to come up with positions for the 100 people which can align with what is provided for in the public service, since PSC never envisioned a situation where it would ever have to employ intercessors. I can't speak on the intercessors, but I have met the director of this faith diplomacy when the First Lady of the United States, Jill Biden, was in the country. He was at State House when she visited, and he was in Kibra when she was given a demonstration on table banking by the First Lady of Kenya, Rachel Ruto. So it is true, there is an office titled Faith Diplomacy. Perhaps, Akivaga, you could tell us, is this where the 4.8 shillings for hospitality is going in State House?
First of all, let us understand the concept of the faith-based diplomacy. It's not a novel concept in Kenya. It's a global concept. Even in the US right now, in Washington DC, we have International Center for Religion and Democracy, and Diplomacy rather, in Washington DC. And part of its efforts is to ensure that the conflicts or the issues which cannot be resolved the traditional way can now be resolved using the tenets of religious teachings. And what these people do basically is that if there is a conflict somewhere, let's say in Afghanistan, they build the capacity of the religious peacekeepers and send them there so that they use the religious tenets to be able to arrive at a solution to that conflict. So it's not a really a novel thing. Now, in the context of the country, what that faith-based diplomacy means from the point of standing of the First Lady is that it's simply approaching issues such as gender-based violence, approaching matters such as women empowerment, approaching matters such as women having the right on land. You empower, because religion, the impact of religion in society cannot be understated. So it's important for us to take chance on it and try to use it to, arrive at some solution of some problems. So what she's simply stating is this: if I want to end gender-based violence, to spread such gospel or women empowerment, I build the capacity of a few religious leaders. They go and tell them, man, the Bible says the Bible does not sanction you beating your women. You see, so it's something in that arena, which is not entirely bad. It's something that happens in our international, so we don't need to be sensational about it.
Okay. Joseph?
First, I want to quote Provost Wainaina of Cathedral, who said that we have been praying for this country. We pray daily for this nation. So some people should not get the excuse of not delivering what they promised to people to brainwash them with religion. Because 80% or 70% of Kenyans, today morning, I prayed for this nation. Am I part of the faith diplomacy or national altar or intercessor? I'm not. I'm not getting paid. But we're having a scenario whereby we're having a government that is hell-bent not to deliver on anything that they promised Kenyans. But now they are conning Kenyans. Let me finish. They are trying to con Kenyans with issues of faith and faith diplomacy. I want to say this, and for the record, that we cannot use state public resources, taxes, to fund such offices. Kenyans, we have Christians, we have Buddhists, we have traditionalists, we have atheists, people even who don't believe in God. The state should protect the right of every person and their belief. And most of the countries that have gone down, they have not gone down because of the tribal wars. They have gone down because a state came in and want to escalate one region over the other. We heard the other day the Muslim asking, if we have a Muslim president today and does the national prayers, he calls the Muslims, the sheikhs only, to do a national prayer with the Muslims, what will the Christians be feeling?
Actually, if you look at the front page of the Star,
yes.
If you can read it for me, the bottom half,
yes.
Joseph.
Yes.
Is it the, yes, it should be the Star. Oh, no, it's not the Star. It's the Standard. Huh?
Yes. Yes.
Let me see. No, that's not the one. What does it say, Dennis?
Don't discriminate against us, Muslim.
Very good.
Still Ruto.
That's what I'm saying. We have a country that, a state house, that is hell-bound on placing a wedge on Kenyans. Today, a Muslim going to the state house and find that you have a national altar that is only for Christians and bishops and a sheikh. What do they feel? Are they part of this country? Do the God or their teachings of the Islam matters? It does not matter. But the reason they are doing that, it's not because that's what they believe in. They believe a good percentage of Kenyans are Christian. And they are looking at the good percentage they can brainwash. And that's what I'm saying. I think, and I have to repeat this, if anyone in this country voted Ruto to deliver or to take this Kenyan anywhere, he's to be pitied most. Lastly, as I say this, I want to tell President William Samoei Ruto that in a case whereby you feel you cannot deliver, just step down. Don't
Dennis.
take Kenyans in circles.
Yeah. I'll just take a quick second. My concern is that...
And just to inform the director, I found the Standard story. I was making reference to it on the screen. Go ahead, Dennis.
My concern is that this is an evangelical tide. And this evangelical tide is actually discriminating even against other mainstream churches. Because we have religious council in this country. Is it called? We also have NSS. Is it called NSSK?
Yes.
And
NCCK.
NCCK. Mm-hmm. If anything, this faith diplomacy was to work, I think we need multiplicity of we need to bring all the sectors, even the Muslims. Today, the Muslims are complaining.
Yeah.
And if you look at what Marx, he will say that religion is an opium for the masses. And indeed, the major, out of every 10 people in this country, 4 people are extremely poor. And
I think it was Nietzsche.
Nietzsche?
Yes.
Okay. So what these people are doing, rather quote unquote, the Ruto's administration, is that we are overemphasizing on religion. Religion is not bad. There's a clear distinction between religiosity and actually being prayerful and being pious. So my concern is that we should not take advantage of these poor people. You know, Africans are more religious than even the people who brought us this religion here. Praying is not bad. But again, praying cannot cancel or cannot end drought. Praying cannot end corruption in this country. Praying cannot bring jobs. What we need, even the Bible says, that prayer without action is like dead. So what we are saying is that we need service delivery. We need more emphasis on service, service, service. We cannot use this to divide this country because religion is a very sensitive matter. Now we have the Orthodox, the old traditional churches complaining. We have the Catholic, the Anglicans complaining. They're not involved. So we have, that is why I'm calling it the evangelical tide. You see the Muslim now complaining. So if this was to be diplomatic, we need to approach it in a more inclusive way. But again, that one does not mean that I support this prayer, what is it called?
Faith diplomacy.
Faith diplomacy. This is, to me, quote unquote, you'll forgive me, I'll call it gangster theology of William Ruto, that we need to actually start checking.
All right.
Yes.
Kidi Mwaga, that one came as a surprise to me, gangster theology.
Yes. On 3rd of January, I wrote on the Standard that we must stop the sacrilegious alliance of the church and the state. And if permit me the latitude to read a section of what I wrote, then we said that the saddest that The saddest of all this is that we have in State House a leadership that has appropriated God to the exclusion of everyone else who so do not share in their political philosophy. Let me let me say this. That when we elected, when this administration was sworn in, there was a general perception that the side that had won the election was the side that belonged to God. And so the reverse of that implication was that the people who did not win that election, or the 6.8 million that had voted the other side, did not belong to God. And I think that is, in my view, an action of recklessness. Why is it an action of recklessness? Is that when that then happens, then it becomes easy to exploit religious anxieties of the populace to drive a wedge, to divide, to banish, to make it appear that certain people are fighting government because, for lack of a better word, they are agents of, Satan or something. However, we must also appreciate this. The role of the faith-based groups in the communities and what they can do. So this is, while we want the State House to be a place where everyone else can go to without feeling that they are unwelcome on account of their faith, say Muslims, say atheists.
And Kidi, I have found your...
Thank you.
Here it is. You can put it up on screen.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, when I said we must stop the sacrilegious alliance of the church and state, there is a reason why at Article 8 of the Constitution, the people of Kenya in their infinite wisdom say that there shall be no state religion. Today, when you look at how affairs of the state are conducted, you almost get the impression that we are a Christian nation. And by Christian, so that Christianity appears to be, the state religion. We must, as Malcolm X puts it, and it is in that article, is that if your religion has not helped you more than it has helped you, leave it at home. Okay. So that we have a state that is secular, that is blind to religious stimuli, that is going to serve the people of Kenya for the simple fact that they are people of Kenya. So that we do not begin to say that this administration was won by people who believe in God. Because the implication of that statement is that people who do not vote for that administration do not believe in God. And let me put this into context. That Kenya has a voting age population of 27 million people. President William Ruto was elected by 7.1 million. So it means that of the voting age population, the president has got a direct mandate of about 26.1% of the voting age population. That is a very small minority. So that it means that the other segment of the populace did not directly give their mandate to the president. So if the president were to say that only this 26.1% are the people who believe in God, it becomes easy, for instance, to say incite the other segment of the population to turn against this 26.1. We put a government in office not to evangelize, but to deliver on public goods. Thank you.
All right, so I need to end the conversation at this point. Akivaga, unless we can do it in 10 seconds.
Yes, I can do it in 10 seconds. Number one, I want to correct the perception that this government has done nothing. When this government came into office, we have delivered on a number of issues. Number one, we delivered on the Hustler Fund issues. Number two, we are planning to reduce the price of gases to 500 shillings for refill of 6 kg. Number three, Women Enterprise Fund has been increased from 5 billion to 13 billion Kenya shillings. And more goodies are going to come. Okay. We are undertaking a process of fiscal consolidation that in a matter of 6 months to 8 months, this country will start experiencing the fruits of the pain which we are bearing currently.
All right, tumesema bei
But
ya
I believe that
LPG
can
gas.
be done without appearing to have a president who is evangelizing to the nation.
But I wish I could.
All right,
Even the
gentlemen,
matter-
I have now
even
to
the matter of the gas.
put
The
a hard
matter of
stop.
the gas. I think we need to talk about that issue of the gas.
No. There is no, because
Can we comment on
already
the-
nishapewa
can we
warning.
comment on the
Nishapewa
LGBTQ?
warning. Time out. All right. So allow me to. I'm so sorry, Dennis. Next time.